I want to welcome you to CadreTalk. My name is Dawn Penfold, and I'm president of Meeting Job, which recently partnered with Cadre. And first, I want to tell you a little bit about CadreTalk and why we have this. We developed this series just as an opportunity for you to grab a cup of coffee in the afternoon and take a short break out of your day and learn something. And so we feel that if there's one takeaway in this half hour, we're in a good place. So let me talk to you about a little bit who we are. Cadre is a cool platform and service offering a compliant, and the key word here is compliant, gig economy, freelancer staffing model. I want you to think about a platform for event staff and event contractors like Uber and LinkedIn with a marketing opportunity like Google. So if you're hiring event staff, virtual event staff, or long-term meeting or event professionals, Cadre is the place that you want to go to. And if you're a gig worker, this is your go-to place to find work. Meeting Jobs, we've been around for 30 years, offers an industry-specific job board, as well as services in retained search, resume pre-qualification, and that's it. So together with Meeting Jobs and Cadre, we're working from event staff all the way up to full-time project and full-time staff. So we've got the whole spectrum of hiring. In fact, I'm going to throw a video on and ask you to look at the video, 30-second video that we just produced.
When the event industry gets knocked down, we get back up. With live events returning, maybe it's time to rebuild with a more flexible workforce. Cadre is the smartest way to contract event industry freelancers, compliantly work with your own freelancers, or access thousands of new faces from a single user-friendly platform. And with our addition of meetingjobs.com, post your full-time openings on the industry's premier job board. It's time. Get back up with us. Visit us today.
I really like that video. Anyway, so a few housekeeping notes. Everyone is muted and you're not seen, so no need to throw on that extra makeup or make sure that you're presentable from the waist up. You're encouraged to ask questions using the Q&A area. And remember, the Q&A area, that's what I'm going to be looking for questions, and we'll address your questions at the end of the program if time allows. So today we have Rachel Horan, and she's president of Career Cultivation. What is truly exciting about today is that we have a former HR person here, and that person that nobody can reach. So we need, and that you need to have in order to get to the next level. And so on top of that, she's also gone into a new venture. She's a former HR person, and she's now gone and started her own venture of career cultivation. And she's an expert on resumes, LinkedIn, career branding, and so much more. And Lauren, I want to thank you to CadreTalk. Tell us a little bit more about you and your journey and how you got to this point in your career.
So thank you for having me, first of all. But yes, I was in HR for over 20 years. I kind of grew up in HR. I started in recruiting, and then have really touched every facet of HR, from employee relations to writing job descriptions to compensation. I mean, really every piece of HR, I've done it. I mean, I've been a part of the hiring process. I've led hiring processes. And so after being in corporate HR for almost 20 years, the pandemic hit and my job was eliminated. And I took a second to think, what do I want to do? And so many of us have been in that space, right? Where you think, what is my next step? And the natural step was to get another, senior director job at another, company doing HR, the same thing. And as I started to think about it, I decided that I really wanted to sort of shift my focus more to do the parts of HR that I really, really enjoyed, which is really working with people, coaching them. And often in many cases, what I did in my HR career was also helping them sort of through the progression of moving into different HR positions, or not HR positions, different positions within the company. And so now I just focus on working with individuals to help them find their new dream job or, their next position.
Yeah, it's great that you made that move. And, I made that similar move 30 years ago when I was laid off from a position. Then I started Meeting Jobs. And when that happens to you, and it's happened to so many people in our industry, it's a great time to reflect on, now what do I really want to do? Now I have that opportunity. So good for you. I think you're going to really, really love every moment of having your own business. So we're here now talking about LinkedIn. And I want to start with the basics. Why LinkedIn? Are other social media sites important? Or, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok? Are those important places, or why LinkedIn? And where do you start when you go to LinkedIn if you don't have an account?
So there are opportunities for some business interactions through other social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. I know that lots of people have sort of business interactions or business pages, business accounts through those platforms. But LinkedIn is by far the largest social media platform for business. It has over 700 million users. It has over 50 million companies who are on LinkedIn. So, I mean, think about that. Think about like how many people are on there purely for, those business professional interactions. And one of the things I just read is that three people are hired every minute on LinkedIn, which is pretty astounding. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's definitely the place that employers go to look for jobs. I mean, not to look for jobs, to look for people to fill their jobs. And it's definitely where job seekers go to network. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And if you don't have a profile, you should have one. Definitely go in there and create a profile. It's very easy to do, and it's really important just to be a part of the greater professional network if you are interested in moving into anything new or even just learning more.
Okay. You've mentioned often in our conversations that and you just mentioned you have to be visible on LinkedIn. You have to have an account. Tell us more. What is the best way to be visible? How do you make an impact on LinkedIn when so many people are there?
So there are a couple of things. To be visible, one thing which seems so simple, but is make your profile public. So lots of people go on and create profiles and then they have it private. Make it public so that people can go and actually go to your profile and see all of your experience. Also be sure to have a profile picture. Recruiters are much more likely to go to look at your LinkedIn profile if you have a profile picture on there. And then also make your profile picture public. So, some of those things are very simple, but people, and I understand, want to protect their privacy, but this is one of those places where you want to be seen. You want people to be able to see you.
In fact, speaking of the picture, I've always encouraged people not to have a stale headshot on their LinkedIn profile picture, to show more authenticity, to show, to make sure it's not wild. You don't want to have like a Facebook picture that some people have. But do you agree with that? I mean, what should your picture look like? What should it reflect?
So I do agree that LinkedIn is a place where you can show a little bit more personality versus your resume, where your resume is pretty flat. Like you try to bring a little life to it, but it's black and white for the most part with just your experience. I think for a picture, you do want it to still be more professional. You don't necessarily want to include your family in it, and you want it to be tasteful, but you can look happier, and you can, have a sense of humor to a certain degree in your picture. Also, it depends on what kind of position you're looking for and what level position you're looking for as well. But speaking of pictures, another place that is important to kind of have a little personality, and this is also important for branding, is your background photo. So LinkedIn has that sort of, I think it's like blue standard background photo. It's like blue and gray, I think now. And what you want to do is you want to put a different picture there. And that is a really great place to kind of really show more of your personality and make you stand out a little bit. So that's a place where you would put something, do you enjoy going to reading? Is reading your thing? So maybe do a picture of a library with tons of books, but something just to get people's attention and add a little bit more interest.
People want to learn more about you, and that's a way to do it. It used to be they want to just know what you did for work, but now they want to know more about you, the person. Yeah. And I think that's an important area in that. Now, okay, let's get to branding because you brought it up. how important is it, and how do you convey your brand on LinkedIn? What are some different ways to do that,
So
with your various aspects?
yeah, so branding is everything. I mean, branding is making you, is what makes you stand out from everybody else who's looking for a job and makes you more than just a title. So one of the places you can do that is in your headline. The default for LinkedIn is your current position that you're in. And so that's fine, but it's a little boring. And so that's a great place to, show more about yourself and show, maybe a few key competencies of the things that you're really good at doing.
Now, that's the headline right under your name, right?
Exactly. So it shows your name, and then it typically will say, like Rachel Horan, chief career cultivator, blah, 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 St. Louis, Missouri. And so, what would be more interesting would be, you say like what you do, like resume writer, dream maker, like all those things. And you can be as big and bold in those statements as you want, or you can simply show what you're really good at. But it's a great place to, show you in a snapshot that isn't just your title.
How about those little cuffs that are around the picture that some people saying looking to network or looking for new opportunities? Are those good to have on there?
I think they are. I mean, for the open to work banner, I think it's really great because a lot of the time people have information on LinkedIn, but recruiters don't always know. So if a recruiter's on LinkedIn just looking for people's stuff, they don't always know who actually is looking for a job unless you have actually applied to something that, they specifically have open. And so if they're just, looking around and they come across somebody who's commented on something, or, your name is suggested to them as somebody to contact or connect with, as a networking thing, if they see that you're open to work, they'll be much more, likely to reach out to you.
Okay, now somebody just asked this in Q&A. There's not an actual job board. Is there? I mean, there's people can post opportunities and pay for when they have job openings. Is there a button you push to say, I am looking for that I can be a candidate, like a traditional job board?
So through LinkedIn, you can do searches for open positions. And you can also set it up so that you get notifications when the types of positions that you're looking for are open, and get either, pinged through LinkedIn, like through the actual site, or they send you an email. You can do daily, weekly, whatever, time period you're interested in to get those notifications for those types of positions. So it's kind of like a job board. It's not, like your like old school Monster was, or like Indeed.com, but you can certainly look for jobs through LinkedIn.
Okay. Let's talk about keywords. And you and I were just having a conversation about keywords before this started.
Mm-hmm.
What are important keywords in our industry, or how do you find the keywords that will get your background noticed?
So
and
keywords are
your profile on LinkedIn often to deal with different jobs as you see them.
So keywords are everything. I mean, they're everything in LinkedIn. They're everything on your resume. And when you think about keywords, what those words are is those are the words it's the type of position that you're looking for. It's the type of words that would, most likely show up in a job posting or a job description for the position that you're interested in. So if you're, looking for a meeting event manager position, that's what you want to be, then make sure that you have the words meeting event manager in your job profile. Having keywords in your headline are important. Having keywords, within the body of your profile are really, really important.
Yeah, I just know that as when I've worked on a retained search at Meeting Jobs, if I'm looking for an incentive planner, I will go into LinkedIn and put in keywords of incentive, logistics. And then all of a sudden, all the people who have incentive in their backgrounds will start popping up, and I can send, notes to them and everything. And that's just something minor like incentive or association or on-site logistics or hybrid. Yep. Those are some key words that people would be looking for that could bring you to the forefront when they're looking for jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one thing that's really important to remember is that LinkedIn is first and foremost a search engine for recruiters. I mean, they are going in and they are typing in those keywords for the positions they're looking for. And the more keywords you have in your profile that, are the same as what they're typing in, that means you'll like rise to the top. And that's, very much how your resume is, is treated through an applicant tracking system. Same kind
I
of.
know, we'll get to
Yeah.
that later, because that
Yeah.
the applicant tracking said keywords are, if I had said the most important aspect in job search right now is understanding keywords, that is so, so important. Is it important to be part of groups? I mean, where can you connect with people through LinkedIn that can help you in your job search or career movement? Is it groups? There's so many places you can go, but what do you suggest?
Yeah, there's so many ways to network. I mean, I think, an easy starting point is to, obviously connect with people that you've worked with or people that you're interested in working with, but connect with people in your industry, or connect with people, if you're in event planning, but you're in pharma, then connect with people who are also in pharma. Or if you're interested in being, in a different, sector, then connect with those people, or connect with people who are in positions that you want to be in and you want to learn more about those positions or how they got there. But another option is also to join a LinkedIn group. So you can go and you can look for different kinds of groups. You can do a search to see if there are any, you can type in, meeting event manager or incentive specialist, and then see what pops up and see if there are any groups that you're interested in joining, so that you can join in their conversation.
Yeah, yesterday I just did a search and there were 63 separate groups for the meetings industry that you could join. And if you could talk a little bit more, it's not just joining the groups, but how do you brand yourself as that person who people go to?
Yeah, so a part of joining a group or even being on LinkedIn in general, one of the key things is to, connect to people and engage with people. So you can go on there and be sort of a silent observer, but what's more important is that you actually engage in the conversation. So, that means, commenting on people's posts. That means actually, sharing articles yourself, making posts yourself, but anything that you can do, liking people's posts, but anything that you can do to continue to engage with that network so that they know who you are.
Yeah, that's so important. Are there any paid features of LinkedIn that are must-haves? Somebody asked that question and I don't think there are there?
I would say no. I think that probably somebody who worked for LinkedIn might say yes. But for me personally, no, I don't think so. I know that, some people like to have the premium membership so that they can go and they can look at other people's profiles secretly, so that people don't know that, they're looking at them. So that's maybe one of the benefits, but no, I think that there are so many things you can do with LinkedIn without paying for anything, aside from maybe if you want to do some of the webinars or things that are paid through LinkedIn.
Okay, so what are you, because we're coming on to 20 after already. What are the top 5 tips, if you had to say the must-haves for LinkedIn that somebody should do besides setting up a LinkedIn profile? That is number 1, obviously, but make sure you do this with your LinkedIn profile.
So, okay, the top 5, definitely make sure that the branding. So the branding is everything. So make sure you update your background photo to make yourself interesting. In your about section, talk about not just what you've done, but and not even just what you're really good at, but what is your approach to things, what makes you different, because this is all about trying to make you stand out from everybody else. And keep in mind that when people are looking at your profile and they see your about section, they're probably only going to see the first 2 or 3 lines, especially if they're looking from a mobile device. So make that little section, make it matter, and put the most important information there. Also be very cognizant about how much information you put in LinkedIn. Keep it pretty short and sweet when it comes to your experience. Share what you're doing, but don't put huge paragraphs and tons of bullets. Nobody's going to read through that. So make it very clear what your key competencies are on the top, with your headline. Did I say 5? I'm not sure if I've said 5.
No, you've said like 10. That's good.
There's so much.
Okay. Okay, so we got a couple of questions. I have heard a lot about cultivating your resume for the position you're applying for, but if someone is looking at you on LinkedIn, and you've applied for different roles. How can you make your profile reflect the right information for each job, especially when HR is looking at LinkedIn as well as your resume? Ooh.
Well, that's a really good question. So what I would say is that you don't want your LinkedIn to be super general, but you want it to be general enough where you have a little bit of flexibility to apply to different types of jobs. What I would caution is that you really apply to jobs that you have the experience for. So you shouldn't, I think it would be surprising if you were applying for vastly different jobs. And if you are, you need to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is showing that you have the experience for both of those jobs, and also explaining your interest in both things so that you're not seeming like two different people. I mean, if you're applying for, a marketing strategist role, and then you're applying for, a hunter type sales position, then you need to at least explain your drive to do both within LinkedIn.
Okay. Okay, here's another question. I've reached out to all my LinkedIn contacts to network with, but now I need to reach out to people that I have not connected with years and that I don't know that well. What is the best way to reach out to them on LinkedIn in my job search?
I mean, I think that most people are open to people who are reaching out, especially to people who aren't necessarily trying to sell them something. So, I mean, if you're reaching out to somebody, sending them, a message through LinkedIn and just explaining why you're reaching out, that you're interested in networking, you're, looking for this type of job, or you're interested in the type of job they're working, they're in, or you have questions for them. I think people are just open. I don't think it's really that hard. I mean, it's never necessarily easy to reach out to people you haven't talked to, but I think people are really open and willing to talk to people.
Yeah, I do too. And I think there's also knowing the fine line of stalking and asking for help. And I think that's important. I mean, I can remember one candidate who had done so much research going in for an interview of each person through LinkedIn and Facebook on those people that it was almost perceived as stalking.
Mm-hmm.
So also know that difference between where the fine line should be, with all those things.
Sure.
The other stat, and I don't know if you know that, but I saw a stat the other day that also said that more people look at LinkedIn after hours than they do during work hours, but they look at Facebook more during work hours than they do after hours. Have you seen any stats on that at all, or?
I haven't seen stats on that, but I have seen people, heard about people talking about things like that. I think when people are at work and if they're looking at, Facebook or Instagram, they're wanting like a quick diversion from thinking about anything business and maybe just giving their brain a little bit of a break. But I think after work hours, that's when people's wheels start turning about how their workday went, and if they maybe are interested in doing something different, if they're interested in like doing something new. And that's when they start thinking more about, business as far as, strategizing and networking with other people.
Okay, great. Another question. I have so many contacts, meaning thousands of LinkedIn contacts that I have gained over the years. What is your recommendation on staying in touch, and how should you stay in touch with the ones in your industry?
I mean, I think the way to stay in touch in LinkedIn, unless you're trying to have, direct conversations, is simply by posting, sharing articles, posting, and, putting yourself out there so that you're popping up in their feed.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great advice on that. Okay, so let's go over to quickly on resumes. Getting your resume to the HR person is sometimes difficult. You feel that when you apply for a job, your resume is going into this black hole when you're applying online. Can you give us some quick advice of how to get to the HR person?
So,
your job.
yeah. So one of the things about, going into the black hole, people are often scared of, the dreaded ATS, the applicant tracking system. And that goes back to the keywords. And so one of the ways to ensure that your resume goes through the applicant tracking system and shows up to the recruiter or the hiring manager is by making sure that you are tailoring your resume to have the keywords from the job posting, so that when when the recruiter goes into the ATS and types in the keywords from the job, the job posting, your resume, goes up to the top, and they automatically see it. Now, once you're at the top, to make sure that, the recruiter sees it, or you get in touch with them. I mean, you can certainly connect with recruiters through LinkedIn. I mean, I would certainly recommend, if you're applying to a job, that you try to do your homework to see who's recruiting at that organization and reach out to somebody and send them a message. I mean, the worst thing they can do is ignore you.
How about calling?
So you can, having been, a recruiter and the HR person, you are very, very busy, and you want to reach out to people sort of on your terms. So, I mean, that can feel sometimes a little bit pushy, but sometimes that's okay. But if you call, only call once. Don't call more than that.
Should they, okay, so I'm going to jump to, okay, you've already met with the HR person, you've had your interview with them, and you're not hearing back from them. How long should you wait, and how do you follow up? What's the best way to follow up after you've had a phone conversation or a Zoom call with that HR person?
I mean, I think one really good follow-up, if you're not doing this already, is to send a thank you email, pretty soon after the conversation, or even just the next day, to, make sure that you're top of mind for that person. But then after that, if you still haven't heard anything, I'd say another week and a half is appropriate, just to send another. And I know people get a lot of emails, but I think most recruiters, in my experience, appreciate getting the emails versus so many phone calls, because they're on the phone with candidates all the time. So send another email, just again, thanking them for the time, asking, where they are in the process, telling them again that you're interested in the position and that you're, available to talk more when they're ready, and then put the ball in their court. But I wouldn't continually reach out.
Should they text you?
I don't feel like texting is really a professional way to communicate, unless the recruiter has already said, here's my information, feel free to text me if you have questions. Like, if they open the door, yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
Okay, so we have 3 minutes, and I want you to give your, again, top tips for a resume, and I'm going to give mine. You should have your LinkedIn profile, your LinkedIn hyperlinked to your LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
Make it easy.
Yep.
So I probably took that from you. So tell me more. Should there be an objective? Should you have a picture on a resume? What should be on your resume? How far back should they go in their career history? These are all questions that I'm getting through the Q&A.
Yeah. So typically for a resume, you don't want to go more than 10 or 15 years back. Now, you certainly can have another section that shows, earlier experience, that shows more, but really the past 10 to 15 years is the most relevant experience. So that's as far back as I would go there. Also, do not include an objective. That is really dated. A professional profile is much better, where you're giving just a little blurb, maybe, 4 lines about, what makes you, sort of, just basically your experience in a summary, and sort of the way you approach your work.
Okay, good. How about chronological versus functional? Or is that also a past thing now with the type of resume?
No, I think it depends. I think there's a time and place for both. I think most people who have pretty established careers and their resumes will show career progression, do a chronological resume. If you have a lot of gaps or a lot of kind of varied experience, sometimes a functional resume is a better way to pull all that together. Personally, I like having a hybrid sort of, resume, where you're kind of doing both, where you're showing things in chronological order, but you're either having buckets that show, the experience, sort of the ties to each other, and kind of brings it all together.
Okay, great. Those were my main resume questions, and we're at the point where we have to end this. Unfortunately, I told you it was going to be the quickest half hour of your life.
It was.
But anyway, what we'll do, and I'm going to ask you this now publicly, is to come back and talk about resumes in more detail and cover letters in more detail at another program. How do people reach you if they want to hire your services for helping them with their resume, their cover letter, their branding, their LinkedIn profile, what is the best way to reach you?
I mean, people can certainly, email me, you can call me, you can go to my website. So, I mean, there are 3 different ways, and I think that you have the information. Are you going to put that up on the screen?
Yeah, it's going to be in the chat.
Perfect. Yes. So, I mean, it's careercultivation.com. So career-cultivation.com is my website. But also Rachel at career-cultivation.com is my email address. And then you're welcome to call or text me at my number. It's 314-363-4759. So if anybody wants to reach out and ask more about what I do, I'd be happy to help.
That's great, Rachel. Thanks so much.
Thank
You've
you.
got great information. You've got a great company coming, it's great. I love seeing somebody start their own business. I love seeing somebody with your background moving forward. And I know we'll be working with each other a lot. So thanks a lot,
thank you.
Rachel.
I
Take
appreciate
care.
it.
Bye,
You too.
everyone. We'll see you in a few weeks at CadreTalk. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.